is off, and we're going to go in 3, 2, 1, and...
Hi, Steve Gillmor. This is 2021.
Yay!
This is the Gillmor Gang. Welcome to everybody except Brent Leary, who is not going to be able to join us today, but we're looking forward to seeing him again next show. Welcome from Massachusetts is Denis Pombriant. Welcome, Denis.
Hey, Steve, and Happy New Year to everybody if I haven't said it already.
Okay, and say a little bit more about that so that we have enough time for the super.
Oh, I see. Well, in light of everything that's happened this week, I think it's going to be tough to sell tickets to Les Miserables anytime soon.
Well, hopefully somebody will explain this to me later.
Storming the barricades.
I see. From London, England, and some virtual train station is Frank Radice. Welcome, Frank.
Hi, Steve. Happy New Year. Happy New Year to the gang. I tell you, on that fateful day, I posted a picture from 1979 in Tehran, which was, it looked eerily similar.
On what fateful day? Oh, you mean...
Day before yesterday. I would call that a fateful day. I mean, you could also call that, a day that will live in infamy in the hearts of the American people, I suppose.
Is that dopodomani, or is that the day after tomorrow in Italian?
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
But the day after tomorrow would be 2 days before today, after tomorrow.
Yeah, go ahead, Michael.
Pardon?
Welcome, Michael Markman.
How do you do? And let's celebrate. Let's celebrate Georgia Blue.
Woo!
Yeah.
Ossoff and Warnock, senators elect.
They worked their ass off and they went out and Warnocked on doors.
And from back in the United States, from Palo Alto, I believe, is
Yes.
Keith Teare. Welcome, Keith.
Nice to be here, Steve. Nice to be back home after 3 lovely weeks in Cape Town, where the sun was shining and the sky was blue. What are the lyrics, Frank? I've forgotten.
But that's good enough. Thank you. The sun is shining and the sky is blue.
I think that's copyrightable.
Yeah, probably, yeah.
All right, so how are we doing? What do we want to talk about?
Oh, there's really no news. It's so slow. I am interested in a couple of things that I'm not sure about, that I know that some of you probably know the answer to, and that is if Trump were to be impeached by the House and subsequently convicted by the Senate, would that be enough? I don't to remove him from office and to keep him from ever being able to be in government again?
Yes.
Or does the it is. If he's just impeached by the House, however, it isn't.
Right.
That's correct. It's the Senate conviction that will remove him from office and prevent him from holding office in the future.
So would the 25th also the 25th does not actually remove him up from office. It just sort of sets him aside, correct?
That's right.
So he can basically say,
yeah.
And then Pence becomes the president. But if Trump then says, okay, I'm magically healed, he
Not
could
exactly.
then, no.
Not
So
exactly.
explain that.
So it goes like this. If Pence and half of the cabinet sign a letter saying that president is unable to perform his duties and transmit that letter to the Speaker of the House and the President pro tem of the Senate, then immediately the powers of the presidency fall on Pence as acting president.
That's unlikely to happen from what I've heard. Is that not correct? It sounds to me
Pence
from
does not
over
seem to want to go along with that. So it doesn't seem like that will happen. Now, remember, this was originally a provision to deal with medical emergencies, so it wasn't expected that that it would be used in this kind of a situation. So if Trump says, no, I want to sign a letter that says there is no disability, and transmits that to the same people, the speaker and the president pro tem, he would resume his power unless Pence says, no, don't listen to this guy. If in that case, Pence is still acting president, and the Congress gets to vote on whether or not to resume to put the powers back to the president, or to leave them with the acting president. And Congress.
So what I'm hearing over.
So
go ahead. I'm sorry.
Remains acting president throughout the dispute, as far as I know. And
so what I'm hearing over here, though, is that that's probably not going to happen, and that the House will move for. This is what I'm hearing here. Move towards impeachment proceedings that could be actually voted on by the House, as opposed to having to go through committee middle of next week.
That's the date I read this morning as well.
Right.
The pressure is building to do that.
If I was an advisor to Nancy Pelosi, I would strongly advise her not to do that, just to let the 12 days run its course and move on with history. I think it's a massive distraction for last week's news.
I don't think Pelosi has a choice. She has to set a precedent. You can't have a president of the United States act seditiously without any consequence, even if it's right at the end of his tenure. Congress has to stand up and say, no, you can't.
So if the House does stand up, is it likely, although I did see a pretty long list of senators, and I don't know how many there were that sounded as though they were in favor of removal of some kind. Is it likely that the Senate would convict? Is there any, and could that actually happen before the end of the 12-day period? And would that be enough to do what you were just suggesting, Dennis?
Yes, it would. You'd need, if you've got 50 Democrats all voting yes to convict, you'd need what, 2/3? So you need what, 16 more Republican senators to agree to that. Whether that happens is a big question mark. But I think then you have to look at what the political game is here. Do the Democrats care so much about getting Trump out as they do care about tying him up in knots for the next 2 weeks, and identifying those Republicans who, under these circumstances, would not vote to support the Republic, which they would then use in future campaigns, I think.
Oh, I think my question also was the optics of that. Would that, if in fact the House did vote to impeach, the Senate took it on, didn't convict, got to the end of the 12 days, would that look like, or the optics of that be enough to satisfy those who said that there were some, that there was a quid pro quo, that for what he did and what he was responsible for doing allegedly or physically, was dealt with, that there were repercussions, even if it didn't actually become something that the Senate votes on.
What about deferring all that to 12 days from now, making it criminal actions?
I expect the criminal action will happen in addition.
Yeah, there's no either or. You have to remember, an impeachment and removal is a political action. It's separate from any judicial action that could be taken by Merrick Garland's Justice Department. So strategically, if I were Trump, I would want them to kick me out quickly so that President Pence could pardon me.
Unless he pardons himself and somehow it actually is real, right?
If he pardons himself, he's going to be tied up in court forever, trying to convince a judge that he acted lawfully, because there's nothing lawful about pardoning yourself. As soon as you pardon yourself, you are not subject to the same laws as the rest of the people in the democracy are, and that is the point of the Constitution.
So it behooves him then to somehow get removed and allow Pence to pardon him. At least that would immunize him from federal prosecution in any case.
The easy way for that to happen, which of course he won't do, is for him to resign.
Yes.
And I think you're making an assumption that Pence would pardon.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think of it as a
Pardoning
pardon.
Nixon was not a good move for Gerald Ford.
Right. I don't think of it as a pardon. I think of it as pulling a Gerald Ford.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I thought it was a good move for the country that Ford pardoned Nixon.
Well, actually, Steve, that's what's behind a lot of my thinking, which is what does this week really tell you about the country? And if you're managing the country for the next 4 years, what message do you want to send to the non-Democrat voters with a view to getting functional over the next 4 years? And so much as one feels anger and shock at Trump and what happened, although I wasn't very shocked, the bigger question is, what does the next 4 years look like, and what does 2024 look like? And what you do now will impact that.
I think you can't game it. I think you have to look at the facts in front of you and act to support the Constitution. If you start asking yourself about 2022 or 2024, you're just negotiating with yourself and giving yourself a rationalization for not doing the thing that you need to do.
Well, it seems to me that what you end up doing is exacerbating an already bad situation with those people who already rioted on Capitol Hill. That part of his base, I think you got to be careful about that. Doing whatever you do. I mean, if you do something that is precipitous, will that not exacerbate them? And is that something that they should be thinking about?
Well, that goes into the same category that Denis was talking about. That's gaming. You know, I disagree with Keith that you just have to look at non-Democrats or Republicans. There's a division there between constitutional Republicans and the conspiracy theory fringe, or the people who showed up at the Capitol. I mean, those people need to be dealt with as harshly as possible, with sentences that are as long as possible. Here's a delicious irony. You know, when there were demonstrations in DC over the summer, Trump signed an executive order saying that there should be a 10-year jail sentence for anyone defacing federal property. Wouldn't it be delicious if everyone who showed up at the Capitol got a 10-year jail sentence under Trump's executive order?
That'd be ironic.
I think that would be taking advantage of non-democratic decisions by the president, the current president.
Well, yes, as Nixon said, that would be wrong, but it would still be delicious.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. I mean, you know, look, there was, I mean, this has gone way beyond just defacing property or defacing, you know, the center of our constitutional republic. But it's now there's a murder involved, and of that policeman, and the killing of that Air Force woman. I mean, it is exactly what the Georgia, I guess it was not the Georgia guy said. Someone's going to get killed, and someone got killed. 2 people.
Five people.
Apparently, 5. Well, 5 didn't get killed, did they? 5 people total. It was 5 people killed.
Well, 5 people died. Some had medical emergencies. Yeah.
Right. Medical emergencies. That's true. But one, they're actually, from what I hear, correct me if I'm wrong, they're actually pursuing a murder investigation against whoever it was that killed that police officer. So in any case, it's way worse than it sounds like over here. Anyway,
let's do a thought experiment. Initially, there were a dozen senators, 13 briefly, in the Senate who were voting to obstruct the electoral vote counting. They called them the Dirty Dozen. When push came to shove, the number dropped to 7 or 8, depending on which vote they took. So 7 or 8 senators represents less than 20% of the senators in the Republican Party in the Senate. It may also be a barometer for the hardcore of the Republican base. It is a significant minority of the country. We have to work to support the majority of the country. The country's founded on the greatest good for the greatest number. If my numbers are even close to right, there's a whole lot of Republicans out there that want to get out from under this burden and don't know how to do it. And it seems to me that Democratic leadership, starting with an impeachment, taking it as far as it's going to go, is a way to help some of those Republicans come in from the cold. And I think the Republican Party might be in the future grateful for the opportunity.
So if Biden is going to be a crossing the aisle president, which of course he doesn't need to be as much as he did before, but he does need to do that to get his special majority and avoid filibustering and stuff. This is a moment to act in that way. And especially if you're right, Denis, that this is a small minority, it would be a shame to shine a light on that small minority to the exclusion of what you want to achieve. So I think my strategic brain says, play this very carefully. Don't escalate, even though it's a minority. Don't escalate, because minorities can still be highly disruptive if energized. And so the spirit behind what I'm saying isn't appeasement or forgiveness. It's basically strategy.
Well, I understand what you're saying, but it reminds me of what happened in 1876-77 at that contested election when Tilden of New York was cheated out of winning the election. It went to the House, and there was a long negotiation which resulted in removal of federal troops from the South in Reconstruction, which immediately turned the South back over to the plantocracy, which instituted 120 years of Jim Crow. So there are consequences for that kind of activity. Somebody has to pay a price. Somebody has to understand that if you raise your hand against the Constitution, there are consequences. We can't simply shake hands and go back to our corners.
I want to say that, Denis, I hope you're right. It sounds to me like it gives those Republicans who are now starting to question what position they had prior to this day permission to flip, to take the other side. And that seems to me almost like what I heard when Lindsey Graham spoke. I mean, it felt that way anyway.
Yeah, good example. Well, Lindsey Graham's great for being a chameleon. I don't know how much to attribute to that. I'd look more towards people like Mitt Romney, who's been outspoken, and even Susan Collins and Lisa Murkowski. You need a few of them. There are people that you're not going to see flip, people like Ted Cruz and Josh Hawley, both of whom have had their tickets to Palookaville punched this week.
Do you think that they think there's any chance of them becoming the candidate next time, or is it game over? Because it feels to me like it's game over, but I'm pretty sure Hawley is playing to be the young, smarter Trump.
Well,
right.
he was last week. This week, it doesn't look the same. I mean, clearly, Hawley was making that play. And Cruz, who wanted to make that play, quickly raised his hand and said, "Me too." So now they're both out there on that limb, and that limb did get sawed off this week. If you want to talk strategy, I think Denis is onto a smarter strategy than just talking about non-Democrats. There's a lot of sign that there's some split inside the Republican Party, and it would be good to encourage that split and not treat the Republicans as a monolith, but to find those people who are willing to tell the truth about Trump.
Right. We don't need to convert all of them. We just need to get 50 or 60% for the next election.
And seems like we're almost there, though.
As to Frank's point, the fringe faction is energized and will remain energized. There's no real way of diminishing that. Hopefully some of their leaders can be jailed because of the actions they took this week. But that fringe is going to be with us for some time.
That fringe has been with us since the 1950s and the John Birch Society and William F. Buckley's seminal book, God and Man at Yale.
Yes, but the fringe is always there. The question is, how active are they, and how much trouble can they make? Right. I like to think of them like herpes. Once you get the virus, it's always there, but you don't always have a visible sore. Sometimes it erupts and sometimes it hides.
Right. So you're basically talking about the way we handled the Russians in the Cold War, or containment strategy. Which is
but it seems like the containment strategy here is on them. That they will decide to contain themselves because the door isn't open anymore. And what Trump did was to open the door that allowed them to come out of that bottle. And now that the door is closing or closed, I may be just being naive here, but I actually think that many of them will continue to have the same thoughts and philosophies, but not as openly as they have them right now, because they aren't, the atmosphere will have changed significantly.
I agree with that. And there's one more thing to consider. Any group, the radical group, the centrist group, is not a monolith. The radicals themselves represent a spectrum. And depending on how the winds are blowing, more people will join them, or more people at the fringes will drop out. So there's going to be a core that will persist. But that group is not of a fixed size. And if it looks like they're part of a movement that has headwinds, not tailwinds, that is to say, that's gaining, they will get more adherents. And if it looks like they're losing, people will drop out and drop off.
Yeah, I think the model for this is Herbert Hoover. I've been saying this for a couple of years. Trump is the new Herbert Hoover. Hoover lost the 1932 election to Franklin Roosevelt, and the Republicans did not see the inside of the Oval Office in any purposeful way for 20 years. They lost 5 national elections in a row because the Democrats just kept pulling out, oh, look what they did. Look at Herbert Hoover. Look what they did to you in the 1930s. That worked until Eisenhower won the election in 1952. 2 years later, Joe Martin and the Republicans captured the House of Representatives. They held it for exactly 2 years. They didn't really recapture the House until Newt Gingrich in the 1990s. So this has been a long cycle, and I think we're about to plunge into another one. People don't forget, and people make generational decisions about what political parties to support. Today's conservatives trace their roots to Ronald Reagan. That's almost 50 years ago, or 40.
Are we looking at a legitimate third party arising?
I think a temporary third party, perhaps. I think the Republicans are splitting into a rump radical party and a vestige of the National Party. They've got some work to do. I mean, they came out of the 2016 election without even a platform, so they don't know what they stand for anymore. So they've got to spend some time in the wilderness.
Yeah, that was an amazing.
Well, they
didn't. Their platform was whatever Trump says.
Well, that was 20. That was the 20. That was
the 2020.
The 2020 platform was not a platform.
Yes, you're right. 2020 platform was actually a reprise of the 2016 platform. I stand corrected.
Yeah, which is, we don't know what to do. So whatever he says, we'll do it.
Yeah.
So to me, it's there's still a sociological truth, and the sociological truth is that a very large number of white working class Americans are disaffected with the political establishment. And what you've got is the Trumpists have now become like a cult. And many of those disaffected white working class people will not be attracted by that cult, but they'll still have grievances and issues. It was interesting listening to Katty Kay from BBC talk about it yesterday. And she did what I sometimes do, which is frame the whole thing in the context of America's relative weakness vis-a-vis China and the working class impact of that and the reaction to that by the working class on Morning Joe, that was. And so it feels to me like there are deep structural issues in American society that these things are just symptoms of. And even if the Trump cult ends up being reduced to nothing, if you're a Republican and you believe the white working class is your base, your job over the next 4 years is to develop an agenda that appeals to them. And Biden's job is to make that impossible somehow.
Well, that's what I was just going to say. Biden, this is about Biden. We've got to make I think we have to make that the turn here, at least in terms of our discussion, to Biden and what Biden's going to do and how he's going to do it and what barriers he faces and or what help he can get. I mean, we've talked a little bit about Steve. I'm sorry I'm doing this, but asking all these questions because I'm curious. I'm genuinely curious because I've been watching and it's been going around in big circles for me. I'm not quite sure why, because I get a lot of this, but a lot of these questions have just been coming up every day for me. So what does Biden do? What does he have to do to take these disaffected working class American citizens who have been supporting Donald Trump, if not wholeheartedly, part-heartedly, and bring them into the fold and help them?
Well, the first thing he has to do and will easily do is get those $2,000 checks out. That's going to be a huge impact. That's an easy thing to get done and an easy thing to point to, and it will be very helpful to people who are struggling. Beyond that, I think that he needs to listen to Bernie. The Democrats have one source who is authentically connected to the white working class, and that's Bernie Sanders. And it looks like to a large extent they will be listening to Bernie. So it's going to be a lot of jockeying in terms of what programs can actually pass legislatively. But I think that a lot of specific things that are already in Biden's agenda, which have to do with infrastructure and building a green economy and promoting union jobs, all is already been embraced by Biden, and all of those things will appeal to the white working class. Now, I don't know how much appeal they will be to the rural white working class, but that's something that remains to be seen.
Well, let me say a couple of things. First of all, Keith, I agree with what you said, except that I don't think it's a political movement or issue. It's an economic issue. And I think the way we turn the corner from Trump to Biden, for Frank, and echoing what you say, Michael, is that we develop more jobs onshore. Certainly, an infrastructure program is going to be huge, and I would predict that it's going to be one of the biggest fights of the first 2 years of the Biden administration, because although the Republicans are wounded, they really don't want to see any program that shows that government can do good. So there's going to be a big fight about that. But I think given the makeup of Congress right now, Kamala Harris has a great opportunity to gavel that through. So I think that there will be infrastructure. Beyond that, I've been toying with the idea that we should think about more native content legislation for goods made in the United States. We did it in the 1980s with Japanese autos, such that today, whether a car is made in Mexico or Japan, it has to have a minimum content of American-made goods, which has stabilized that industry and stabilized the economy of those industries. And I think if we look beyond that, there are a lot of other industries that could benefit from a similar approach, an approach that basically says if you want to sell your goods here, you can't make them all overseas. You got to make a percentage of them here. Sorry for the long-winded answer.
No, I think that's a great answer. But it also seems to me that anything that can happen early is going to probably be able to happen better than things that might be being battled later.
I think what you're saying is that early in the administration, Biden has a great opportunity to maybe leverage his position and also take advantage of a weakened Republican Party, which I kind of agree with.
First 100 days.
Yeah. Have you heard the strategy that says he shouldn't put out one proposal at a time? He should just flood the zone with all of the proposals and say, let's go at it. I don't know if that's the best idea. I was curious about what you all might think. Frank, are you hearing us? I heard you grunt.
I haven't heard that, Dennis. So give a bit more flavor. Who's saying that, and what exactly they're saying?
I forget who's saying.
I'm hearing some odd feedback here, so I'm trying to figure out why.
Oh, it's just me. Keith, basically, the theory is that when Obama came into office, he decided he was only going to put one idea in front of Congress at a time to get it through, and the Republicans just stood up and said no. They basically crossed his T, in nautical terms. And now the strategy is don't give him the chance. Put a bunch of stuff out there and expect that the people are going to demand action.
Yeah, I mean, parallel or serial. Parallel. Yeah, I mean, why would you not do that? If you've got the people and the resources to work on multiple fronts at the same time, you always should, I think.
Walk and chew gum.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. I think in politics, people don't like to have too much on their plate, but in business, I'm sure you're going to agree with this. In business, you got a lot on your plate, and you have to shoot in a bunch of directions at the same time.
I juggle, 10 interesting looking balls simultaneously. And when one drops, I stop focusing on it and focus on the ones that are still up in the air.
And one of your balls right now has got to be the Bitcoin ball, which is just absolutely insane. My wife and I keep looking at this very tiny amount of money we put in there a long time ago.
Yeah.
I Do you mind if, Steve, if I bring up another topic that is tangential to this, and that is the Facebook, Twitter, and what they've done to Trump, and sort of as a secondary to that, something that Brian Stelter brought up today, which I found to be really interesting, was why wouldn't you look at companies like AT&T and Comcast, who are allowing channels like OAN and Newsmax to be on their platform, spewing out clearly lies and disinformation and dangerous content? Why would you not take them off of the platform? Now,
it's funny,
first,
Frank.
go ahead. Go ahead.
No, you just triggered a memory from yesterday when I was reading a piece about China where this guy was prosecuted by the state for, quote, troublemaking, unquote. It's a crime to be a troublemaker in China. That is to say,
isn't that why Jack Ma went into hiding?
Partly, I think, yeah. So I don't, for me, any time we go down a path of controlling the message, I worry about it, not because of any legal things. I mean, Facebook and Twitter are completely right to do whatever they believe is right for their businesses. And sometimes that's for the country, although I suspect it's mainly for their businesses. It's not lost on me that Facebook did that once the Georgia results were out and realized that the Democrats are going to be policing them for the next 4 years.
Well, that's a very interesting point, because I mean I actually posted something about that on my Facebook page that was ironic, isn't it? That once they determined that the Democrats were going to be the ones that were going to be regulating them or overseeing them or in a position to be able to change what it is they may or may not be able to do, that they went ahead and did that. But didn't Twitter reinstate Trump's Twitter account in the last few hours? Am I wrong about that?
Yes, they gave him a short timeout, and it expired, and he's back
doing the same thing.
Well, not quite. It's a little bit. He's a little bit restrained, but yes, the same thing.
They demanded that he take down 3 tweets, and he did.
Right.
Well, how do we feel about that? I personally, I felt that
I'm glad that Trump is taking down tweets. I think he should take down all of them.
Well, when he is no longer the president, aren't all of his tweets that are living right now in their cloud, aren't they eliminated? Or will they still be able to be accessed?
That's his private account. It's his personal account.
Well, the POTUS account gets reset back to 0.
Yeah, but nobody
that becomes Biden's account.
Yeah.
But one thing you need to understand is that, to the best of my knowledge, all of Twitter is in the Library of Congress.
Yes, and Trump's tweets, I think, are subject to the Federal Records Retention Act.
Yeah. Yeah, they ain't going nowhere.
Great. Well, I mean, I guess it's a good thing that you'll be able to go back and look at all of this content and make a decision based on the reality of the written word in the future.
I think the real discussion, and I know I'm in a minority of one on this, but the real discussion is, should you try to control the message or should you try to win the argument? And I think that they're incompatible. You can't do both. You should either try to win the argument or you should try to control the message. If you're going to control the message, then legality has to play a role. Like controlling something that's legal is crossing a line. If it's illegal, then it's fair game. So it's incredibly difficult. I would not want to be Jack Dorsey or Zuckerberg having to make those decisions. And my natural instinct would be to try to win the argument, not to control the message, and only take things down that are illegal.
Winning the argument sounds fine for rational people, but have you ever tried an argument with someone who is deeply in the conspiracy world?
No,
who believes
you
that
can't.
the weather is controlled by 14 ionic heaters around the world?
You
No, but
can't
that's
win
it.
that.
There's a vast conspiracy of child molesting evil people controlling the world. I mean, how do you win that argument?
Well, you're misinterpreting the meaning of winning the argument. It doesn't mean changing the minds of idiots. Winning the argument means winning the consensus in society. It's fine for the idiots to stay where they are, but you really don't want to, if somebody is one of those people and, they say something and you do the digital equivalent of shooting them, that doesn't necessarily help anyone. So it's about where you want to take society, not what you want to do with those idiots.
The thing that troubles me about that whole area is the way the algorithms work to promote conspiracy and idiots. There's Facebook's own data said that 61% of people who join fake news groups do so because they were recommended by Facebook's algorithm.
But that's also true of us.
There's something there
that's because they're fake news fans.
No, but
and that's why the algorithm knows that.
What the algorithm does is it's even-handed. It will serve me up tech stories and stuff that I'm interested in as well, which means I'm in my bubble. It just happens that my bubble is a little healthier than their bubble. But the algorithm is benign and neutral. It gives you what you want.
Yeah. Or what you
Dennis,
go
you
to the
can weigh in
most.
on this?
I think benignness or benignity is going to kill us.
Benignity. I like that word. Benignity.
I'm not sure it's a word. I think it is.
Sounds like it's good enough to be a word. I mean, are you saying that that we're being too kind?
Well, I'm saying that if you look at the political discourse in this country over many decades, you've got one side that'll say and do anything to win, and you got another side that insists on following the rules and dealing with logic and facts. And part of the problem that we have is that there's no factual meeting ground anymore. So I think looking at these algorithms as benign is part of the problem.
So it's interesting. I was doing my 14-year-old's English homework with him this week, and it's very relevant to this. Anne Hathaway, who plays the lead in this new thing called The Witches, depicted a three-fingered witch who presumably was evil in some way. And in social media, there's an actual condition where people have three fingers and have distorted hands, who were very offended by this show and by Anne Hathaway's depiction. And they complained. And my kid's homework was to read Anne Hathaway's apology to those people and say that had she known, she never would have played the role. And it was clear there was a huge pile-on, which the algorithm would have reinforced, which led to the conclusion that you shouldn't play characters with three fingers and be a witch, which to me is ludicrous. It's like saying drama and fiction have to only be nice to people. And so basically, really warped things happen across the entire political spectrum based on viral word of mouth pylons. And I think
political correctness. Somebody out there, I don't know, let me think. Somebody out there said, we're going to stop all this political correctness stuff.
Yeah.
Who was that?
I play the victim all the time.
Well, political correctness is offensive to me, actually. I mean, the Anne Hathaway one's a great example of it, because it's a fictional thing called witches. Who cares? I mean, maybe the Hunchback of Notre Dame has to be banned now as well.
No, yeah, you can't have any hunchbacks. I got a hunchback at the office.
So So it feels to me like these ideas, not just fake news, but fake movements, or elevating a minority dissent into a major issue, all of that happens very rapidly in our media across the entire political spectrum. And I feel like the problem is rationality is being thrown out.
Well,
You're absolutely right.
and the algorithm, which works faster than any of our brains works, will grab a hold of those little things and explode them.
Yeah.
Well, especially if outrage is involved, especially if you get into that "how dare they" mode.
Well, especially if the victim, in quotes, is clearly in some way you can understand their emotional reaction because they're being pointed out for some weakness they have, and they're objecting to being pointed out in that way. So you have a sympathy for the victim, but the consequence of taking that too far is that you rewrite society to be politically correct always, and therefore stories can't be told unless they're kind of princess and prince stories.
There's a great joke about that, and I could tell it to you offline. It's not dirty or anything, but it would derail us. But it involves a little boy and a frog. I don't know if you ever heard it.
You mean the one about the little boy and the frog who walked into the bar? Yeah, it's finally got you to smile, Steve. The thing there's an interesting thing that happened this week when Trump said that wasn't social media, that was Trump media. Did you guys hear that?
Yeah. What did it mean?
Well, that's what I'm asking. I mean, my immediate reaction was Trump media. He meant was AON and Fox and Newsmax, or at least AON and Newsmax. But could it have meant something else? That he was saying that his social media is Trump media, not social media. I just am curious about the sentiment or the feeling that you guys have about that.
When I first heard that, I thought he was making a rough equivalence between Trump media and social media versus the Republican Party and the party of Trump. I think he was self-aggrandizing and saying that all social media trees up to him these days. But that's just my interpretation.
Well, it's valid.
Yeah, I don't think it's complicated. What he was saying was, I hate social media. I'm fighting against social media. This is Trump media. In other words, this is me. I'm not social media.
But
and, it's particularly unintelligent what he said.
Kara Swisher
No,
made
but
an
it's
interesting
consistent.
point.
It's consistent with his strategy from before he was president. He tells a lie. He repeats a lie. He amplifies the lie. He gets other people to tell the lie. That's the only media he's interested in. The people who will reflect his view of the world. Everything else is capital F, capital A, capital K, capital E. There's Trump media and fake media, and social media has too many voices that aren't his.
So Kara Swisher said today on Morning Joe that if 230 goes away, that the social media companies will go out of business. What do you think of that?
I think that's nonsense.
Well, they'll
and
certainly get
Kara Swisher, who I think has just been incredibly intelligent in navigating these waters for quite a while, which I wouldn't have expected, given what happened in the era of TechCrunch and Huffington Post, etc. So it strikes me as a position that she took that she will nuance to a different stance. I don't think that it makes sense that just because 230 is edited, that means that Facebook's going to lose their business model.
Well,
she was
will
saying
happen,
don't lose it, amend it.
what will happen, Frank?
Exactly.
What will happen is if it went away, liability shifts to Facebook for everything anybody says on Facebook. So the number of lawsuits would massively escalate. And obviously that would not necessarily be a good thing. And so it isn't so much to do with advertising as to do with managing content and being accountable for it.
Yeah, that's exactly what goes. I mean, if 230 goes away, that's what happens.
That's what happens right now.
We just elected a Democrat. 230 is not going to go away.
Yeah.
Even if it did go away, one simple fix would change all of that. If you have an entry level of Facebook where people can address some reasonable number of people, but not the entire world, and have no restrictions on them, and you have other tiers where people have to demonstrate a certain amount of professionalism, you could easily say that people in those other tiers have to assume the liability. They have to become their own corporations, providing information to the world, and Facebook becomes simply the pipes provider. Facebook doesn't want to do that because they would lose some revenue in the process. That's a very, very manageable problem.
Every time that there's a citizen revolt against Facebook, their numbers go up, not down.
Well, as we all know, and as Mel Brooks said, the citizens are revolting.
Nice dual entendre.
Thank you.
I agree. Well, yeah, you know what? We've been through 4 or 5 years where not a lot happened, not because we had insoluble, intractable problems, but because nobody wanted to deal with them. With a new administration and with an administration that's not bent on preserving the status quo, we're going to find solutions to all kinds of issues that we avoided for a long time. For example, immigration. Immigration's been a big, ugly sore since 2006 when John McCain tried to fix it. It's just been festering. It's getting worse because we don't have a solution. We don't have a policy. That's going to change.
I wonder if, and I agree with you, I think you're right, how it will affect the disaffected to see that things will be dealt with in a logical, fair way.
Oh, happy day.
There you go. Your mouth to God's ears. Or, yeah, that's what she said.
Yeah. I always look up. I don't know why.
Well, you can't look left or right, I guess, unless you're looking at one of your cats.
Yeah. They're all sleeping.
Okay.
I'll tell them you said hi.
Good.
Hey,
Good.
So what else?
Tommy Lasorda died at 93. Just happened.
Oh.
Yeah, that's a shame. Happens to the oldest of us.
A great baseball mind.
Yeah.
We lost a lot of people over the last week. We lost a lot of musicians. I forget the last surviving member of the Brubeck Quartet passed away. My mind's blank right now, but I know we've lost a lot of people in the arts. Bummer.
Yeah, there was the lead singer of British band I completely lost it. Where did Keith go? He'd know. We lost him.
He had to go to a meeting.
Well, All right, God, go with God and Bitcoin.
Okay, well, there's
Crickets.
that.
All right. Sounds like we're out of time. So quick snap Gillmor gang poll. How do I phrase this? Are we going to get through to Inauguration Day without any further crisis on the order of what happened on Wednesday?
I don't know what's going to happen on Inauguration Day. Most of the people that organized what happened at the Capitol are planning to organize for Inauguration Day, and I presume that the security arrangements will be more robust. So I'm not sure if your question encompasses Inauguration Day, but I think we will have more turmoil ahead.
Yeah, I'm talking about Trump-induced crisis.
I don't know.
I have a
Trump
feeling
has to-
that Trump has been netted. I think that effectively he's not president. The fact that the National Guard was called out by Pence and not Trump, the fact that Pelosi is talking to all of the leaders of the military about ignoring Trump gives me some hope that they just put a big pillow from the My Pillow guy over Trump.
I don't think Trump has to say anything to get something to happen. I might be worried about if there is a vote, an impeachment vote, something could happen that day. To answer your larger question, in my opinion, something is going to happen, but it may not be at that level.
I think Trump's out of bullets at the moment, and I think that we're seeing a point counterpoint kind of thing. It's like a tennis game. I think the next move is for the Democrats, and I think the Democrats would be smart to start a robust impeachment process to ensure that they keep Trump and his minions on guard and focused on that, so that they don't have time to create other mischief.
But as I say, mischief can be created without Trump and his minions. That's what we saw 2 days ago. That yes, he exacerbated it. Yes, he pushed it and made it happen. But I think that many of these people feel that they have permission, regardless of whether Trump says something, to go and do mischief.
They have permission, but they don't have organization. One of the big shortcomings of this group is that it doesn't have the organization to order lunch.
Yeah.
Well, that was a good thing, or else what happened on Wednesday could have been catastrophic in terms of loss of life.
Yeah.
But again, that isn't a separate incident. I mean, really, the question is whether or not there's going to be an attempt made to force the military to make a decision about this or not. The thing that's alarmed me the most has been the signals sent by the administration to cut off the flow of information from the Department of Defense. I mean, we're flying blind about that as citizens, but what the incoming president is saying is that they don't know what's going on either.
I think that's one of the reasons why we didn't hear as much as we probably would have heard about why there was no serious law and order happening at the Capitol, and what the military's role was, or look, everybody know, or everybody should know, that Washington, D.C. does not have its own National Guard, but Maryland and Virginia are literally minutes away from there. So there were reasons why stuff didn't happen.
Yeah, I mean, there was communication going. What the governor of
Maryland.
Maryland?
Wait.
Yeah, I don't know if you saw his news conference. Steny Hoyer, who represents Maryland, called him on the cell phone, called the governor on the cell phone and said, send the National Guard. And they didn't have the authority to do it because that has to come from the Department of Defense. And it took 2 hours to route around the Secretary of Defense to get that authorization in place.
Right. I
So
mean,
It feels like there was some coordination at the high level. You go back and wonder, why did Trump suddenly fire the Secretary of Defense and put in a lackey? Why did they stop talking to the Biden team? Why did they block so much possible security? I think there's a lot to come out, but there's a good reason to be very suspicious about what was going on.
In an effort to not sound like, a conspiracy theorist, that was exactly what I was thinking, that who is the boss of the Secretary of Defense? Let me think. It's pretty clear. Maybe clear as mud, but to me, it's pretty clear, and it sounds like a conspiracy. Walks like a conspiracy and talks like a conspiracy.
yeah, I don't think that there's anything governing this except Trump's need to justify his, his role after the 20th. I don't think that there's any specific conspiracy that's going on here other than, Pence not picking up the phone for half an hour, just refusing to answer the phone. It seems to be the strategy that these guys are using. So,
well, yeah, I think you're right there, Steve. The other side of the coin to me was that it wasn't something that was done on purpose. It wasn't like, hey, don't do this. It was like, just don't say anything, and this doesn't happen.
Right.
well, I think that's true, but I think that, we've heard today, I heard some commentary about the decisions on the part of the police and the military or National Guard, whatever, that were made in spite of the reluctance, let's put it that way, on the part of Trump to send in any kind of force against the people that he had encouraged to riot. So my question was, is there going to be anything else that's going to happen? I think Inauguration Day has been taken off the table by the fact that the authorities are now on notice that they have to have a presence and they have to be visible and they have to be responsive to the possibility of this happening, which I think hopefully will mitigate against it happening again.
But could Inauguration
That's why
Day,
I say I think the government is effectively learning how to route around Trump. We don't have the 25th Amendment, we don't have impeachment, but somehow he seems diminished in terms of the control that he can exert.
Right. I think I think what Twitter did was probably the most important thing of all, which is they said specifically, here are 3 tweets that if you don't take them down, you aren't going to get back on the platform.
Because they're inciting.
Period.
Because
That's
they're
what they said.
inciting people.
Yeah, there were reasons why they said that. But, Trump is nothing if not pragmatic in his, whatever this is that's going on up there. He had to cave, period.
You could see that in his hostage video last night. The body
Right.
language was incredible.
But he didn't have to
But
do
he
that.
was clearly forced to do that.
No, I don't think so. I think that he was he wanted to put up another post once he was let back on the platform. And that was the best that he could come up with. That doesn't mean that he was forced to make that. He, basically they said to him, if you do this again, then you're going to be banned permanently.
No, but it wasn't just Twitter at that point. It was also the White House counsel saying,
Yeah.
That may
read
be
this
true.
script.
I'm sure that may be true, but what I'm saying is that Twitter actually got him to back off.
I agree with that.
However remotely appropriate or inappropriate that was, they're the first ones to do it. Nobody else has been able to accomplish this.
Michael, are you speaking about the video where he almost conceded?
The non-concession concession speech, yes.
That was the
The
second
one
video.
where he said, I'm going. Not that I lost, not that Biden won, but I will be going.
Yeah, that was the second video. The first video was the one where he started off with, I won by a landslide,
right?
But you guys ought to calm down and go home. But I still love you because in my heart, I understand what you're doing. The next video was the one I think was the one that Pat Cipollone said, you gotta do this. I think that's the one you're talking about. I could be wrong.
I don't buy that.
That is the video that you just described is the one that got him banned from all the social media platforms. YouTube, Facebook, Twitter all took it down, and Twitter banned him temporarily. Facebook, I think, banned him from the rest of the term.
Yeah, right. I wasn't sure that was the video that did that. I thought it was his texts that did that. But if it was the video, that makes sense.
Yeah, I think Trump is doing something strategic. He's discovered that he can't take over the government. He can't have a putsch. He's not going to have a coup. So now he's trying to build a case that he was always in favor of peaceful handover and transition of power, and getting in front of the cameras to say that is just his way of admitting he's out of ammo, he's out of bullets, he's got nothing else that he can do.
I agree, and I don't think that he was forced to say that. I think he was allowed to get back on Twitter, and then maybe Cipollone came in, maybe they had an impact on what he was going to say, but Twitter said in banning him for 12 hours, they basically said, you have to take down these 3 tweets. I don't know what they were or which ones they were, but he took them down. They were deleted.
Right.
And then
one contained the video that Frank described, and the others were text tweets.
Great. So they got him to do that, which effectively changed the equation. And then he tried to get back on with that second video, which was, perhaps was impacted. But, the fundamental reality of this is that, Jack Dorsey was the first one who actually challenged him directly when he had what he thought was control, and may have had control of the business model of the social media clouds. That is, in my reading of this, is that Jack Dorsey basically said, no, we're gonna do this thing where we're going to label it and this and that. They basically established control at the cost of attacks on 230 and the various social media fake news arguments. So they took a chance and they won.
Now, there you have it, the intersection of media, politics, and technology.
Nice job.
Yeah, I think he's doing a good job. He's not managing 2 companies. He's managing 2 companies and a country.
It's a floor wax and a dessert topping.
Yeah. I'd phrase it two companies and a lunatic, but
There you
All
go.
right. So last thoughts, and let's try and enjoy ourselves for the next 11 days or whatever it is.
Well, at least until we do another Gillmor gang.
Yeah. Well, as Colin Powell said yesterday, it's the weekend, so that's 3 days. And then next week is the last week. And then we get Sky out of there.
Except he's the guy who also said there was WMD in Iraq.
Yeah. And he apologized.
Yes, he did. He's been apologizing ever since that day.
for,
Yeah.
for 20 years. But
Yeah.
my point is that, or his point is, that's why all this talk about impeachment, I agree with Dennis's theories about the impact of moving toward impeachment and, pinning down the Republicans in terms of which side are they on. I don't think it's going to have much of an impact, and they don't have enough time, as Colin Powell suggests.
Yeah.
Basically what we have to do is to make sure that as best we can, that that Trump is aware of the potential for removal, more so than the actuality of it. What's really going to happen is he's going to be removed by the inauguration on the 20th.
But he still has the opportunity to come back in
Well,
some form to the government. I mean,
Heather Cox Richardson said something which I think is probably true. If you look at his health and his weight, the idea that he will be able to run in 2024 is iffy.
Yeah, but he may be able to walk.
He'll be walking into courtrooms. That's about it.
Yeah.
Well,
Hip
remember
walker.
the line in Woody Allen's Sleeper, where it was discovered that the Big Mac was a cure for cancer?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so we don't know. He could live to be 100. I certainly don't wish anything for him but a healthy lifespan so that he can sit in whatever mess he's made for himself. I'm looking forward to the 20th.
Amen.
I'm looking forward to seeing the list of pardons that are undoubtedly going to come out next week.
Jared.
Well, I think we can predict. I think we can predict his family plus Rudy.
Not Eric.
Yeah. But I wonder who else. Apparently, Lil Wayne was on that list. I'm trying to figure out what.
But you have to do something wrong first.
Is he going to pardon all the people at the Capitol building?
Did you say at the Capitol Hilton?
No. I question whether he can mass pardon the rioters at the Capitol building.
He has unlimited pardon power.
Yes, he can. Washington did that with the Whiskey Rebellion in about 1792, I think.
I think the key pardon that's going to happen is going to be what's his name?
Jared.
No, our new president. He will pardon Trump.
No.
Yes, absolutely.
No.
I don't disagree with you. I think you might be right. And he'll do it as a
I'll take that.
As a humanitarian.
A producer. She's brilliant. She's been right about a lot of things.
No, not going to happen.
What'd you say, Tina? No.
No, she says not going to happen.
No,
not going to happen. I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised. Is it Dennis? Are you saying not going to happen?
I think the pardon is part of a plea deal with the Justice Department. I think it's a quid pro quo. If Trump fesses up to everything he did, he will be pardoned for those specific things. Anything he leaves out, he can be charged with. So it's to his benefit to be very detailed in admitting his crimes.
I mean,
that won't help him with Cyrus Vance in New York.
No.
There's no way that Trump can stop Biden from offering a pardon. He can refuse it, but he can't stop it from the offer being made. And the offer is enough to, to recall, the end of our national nightmare, which is what Jerry Ford said.
Well, don't forget that the acceptance of a pardon is an admission of guilt, which would automatically disqualify him from future office.
Well,
that's a third lane, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, but it's not one that I didn't say that Trump's going to accept it. I said that Biden's going to do it.
No, Biden's not going to unless he gets something.
Still a third lane.
Transaction.
So
Third lane.
Frank, you never actually, once you decide something, you never change your opinion. So you're sticking with what you said a while ago, which is, yeah, that might happen.
Yeah, I'll stick with it.
Great.
I mean, I do change my mind, but I won't this time.
I think.
But I agree.
I think that would cost.
I agree that it has to come with some stuff attached to
Springs,
it, like
some springs. I think that it would cost Biden much more political capital than it would earn.
Among who? The non-existing Republican Party. I mean, come on. Okay, and Dennis, you say possibly, correct?
Possibly what? Possibly Trump gets pardoned?
By Biden, yes, correct.
Yes, as I say, if it's part of a plea deal.
Okay, I want to thank our producer and director, Tina Chase Gillmor.
Thank you.
I want to thank Brent Leary for, although he's not here with us today, he will be here with us in the future. And we're looking forward to that. And we hope that everything turns out good or better than the current situation that he's in with his family. And I want to thank Keith Teare for joining us. And I want to thank Denis Pombriant. Thank you, sir.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me. It was a good show.
Michael Markman.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure as always.
And what's this? Oh, yeah. Frank, right?
Billabong. Hey, thanks, guys. It was a very informative program. It cleared up a lot of the questions that I've had over here. The view from here is a little different, and you've helped me out a lot. I appreciate that.
Well, we appreciate you being here. Thanks to everybody who showed up, and especially those who didn't. We'll see you again next time. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Ciao, me.
So look, if there's going to be a plea deal and an extensive list of crimes Trump has to sign off